TJP, Tye Dillinger, and Hideo Itami officially released from the WWE, according to ProWrestlingSheet.com. Sup, y'all? Welcome back to the review space. I want to do this quick video regarding a couple of official releases from WWE. Basically, talent, wrestlers that's been let go officially by WWE. And, we've heard about Hideo Itami already, formerly known as Kenta, K-E-N-T-A, from the Japanese promotion. I believe he was in Noah for many years. Of course, made some appearances in Ring of Honor, and infamously the man who created the go-to-sleep finishing move and the combination strikes and the kicks, all those different combination attacks that would be utilized later on by CM Punk, and of course that running knee attack that would also be utilized by Daniel Bryan. So he's had pretty much every one of his finishing moves taken from him by other more popular wrestlers especially from WWE. I would even say he was using the double foot stomp as a finisher. I remember back when he first started on NXT in 2014. If you guys remember that, like he would do the double stomp as a finishing move. And then they gave it to Finn Balor when he came in. So when Finn Balor, shortly after Hideo Itami made his debut, and then Finn Balor came in as this other guy from a Japanese promotion, formerly known as Prince Devitt, and then he started doing the double foot stomp finishing move instead, and it was like, oh man, like even while in WWE, they're taking his finishing move and giving it to somebody else. To the point that Kenta, it got to a point where Kenta couldn't even use his own GTS go to sleep anymore after injuring, I believe it was, who the heck did he injure? Was it Austin Aries? Yeah, one of those guys. It was either Austin Aries or maybe another cruiserweight. I believe it was Austin Aries, but it might have been somebody else where he would do the go, and somebody ended up getting their eye socket damaged or something like that. And yeah, it's rough. It's rough because he was also plagued by so many injuries. I knew that he wasn't going to go far at all in WWE. I believe like back in 2014. So, years ago, back in late 2014, I already made a video why Japanese wrestlers don't make it in the United States, why they don't make it in America, especially on the mainstream American promotions like WWF or WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. So there's so many different reasons why. And a lot of it, too, is because, Hideo Itami was undersized. The guy was maybe about 5'7" or 5'8", maybe 150, 160 pounds, something like that. And so he was undersized. He didn't have the height. He didn't have the size that Vince McMahon would be looking for. He wasn't like a 6'4", 6'5", like super jacked dude with huge muscles. He was definitely just a cruiserweight, and even though he was very innovative in the ring, the guy was injury prone. He just kept getting injuries after injuries after injuries. He was out for like a year and a half that first time around, and he just kept getting injured constantly. The guy was so weak, and his body was so frail and fragile that they really didn't get much out of him. I think he did like one WrestleMania token appearance at one of those the Andre the Giant Rumble, I think, or Battle Royale, I should say. And he got eliminated. It was not a big deal. He just made like a little crappy, forgettable appearance. It really wasn't anything important. It was just kind of just a slot to be filled. He was like a jobber basically, and so he never even made it really on the main roster. I think he did a little bit of the cruiserweight thing, the 205 Live stuff, and I don't even really remember him in that division doing anything noteworthy. I think he had maybe a title shot here and there, maybe that one little token cruiserweight title shot at was it at the Royal Rumble or TLC or something? I don't even remember anymore. Maybe Elimination. He's gone. Anyway, he's gone. So it doesn't matter. Hideo Itami, to me, was never important. He was never... Maybe on NXT, there was a little bit of a buzz with him coming in just because it was Kenta. Kenta was one of the more accomplished and celebrated Japanese wrestlers in Japan, but it's a very different environment. And on the main roster, you knew Vince McMahon was going to be like, this guy doesn't even matter. He's just another Funaki. He's just another, like a crappier version of who's that guy, Taka Michinoku. At least with Taka got a little bit of a push. At least initially with that light heavyweight title and all that, and he won at WrestleMania, for God's sakes, against I don't know if it's Aguila or one of those guys. I think he was supposed to face like Brian Christopher. This was like WrestleMania 14, so this was like 1998. So, but Taka got Taka accomplished more in his tenure than Hideo ever did. And Taka Michinoku was never pushed to the top at all. He was just kind of treated as a kind of a foreign talent, a Japanese wrestler. It's like, oh yeah, we got Taka, and then he was just kind of relegated to the light heavyweight division. He couldn't really cut promos in English. He didn't really have any English speaking skills, so it was rough. And he got shredded on the microphone by guys like Brian and Jerry Lawler and all that. And then he was put into the Kaientai, the tag team with Funaki. I think it was Funaki in that kind of comedic, they were doing the Japanese bad translation kind of thing where they would say something in Japanese, but then the translation in English on the pre-recorded image, like, oh my goodness, I forget exactly what they would say, but yeah, it was kind of comedic. But with Hideo, nothing happened with him. I mean, the guy was basically just he was so irrelevant that you forgot that he was a part of WWE. That's how lackluster the dude's run in WWE was, and he was there for years. 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then early 2019, thankfully, he's finally gone because he was doing nothing in that company. He felt completely irrelevant, and it doesn't even matter. He just kept getting injured so much. It was really just best for him to stay in Japan or stay in the Indies and do like Ring of Honor spots here and there. I don't know if he'll go to AEW. I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if AEW gives him an offer, but you never know. I don't even know if he'll do any kind of important things in AEW. That's how lackluster he feels. And I feel like too, Hideo he's been in the business for so long that I think his prime in the ring as an athletic, influential guy was in that mid-late 2000s when he was absolutely having great matches in ROH against guys like Daniel Bryan, against guys like Chris Hero and Davey Richards. He was tremendous in that late 2000s, early 2010s period when he was absolutely having great matches. And in Japan and all that with a go to sleep, and he was having the best finish. He had the best finishing move in the business until CM Punk stole it basically from him and ripped it off. He took the GTS and made it a WWE thing. And I would even say that way more people, especially in America, associate the GTS, the go to sleep, with CM Punk than with Kenta. And of course the running knee with Daniel Bryan. So there's so many things that happened to Hideo that was just, man, it's pretty much horrible, you know what I mean? His career just completely fizzled out by the end, The WWE really, in many ways, destroyed his legacy or his career, whatever you want to call it. It really just, he did a whole lot of nothing, It's too bad because, again, he had some really great matches and excellent in-ring performances back in that late 2K period against the other indie talent, but some things are just not meant to be. As far as TJP, that's a bit of a surprise, but not really, because the guy is a 205 Live, another cruiserweight, that didn't really matter. I mean, there's been so many cruiserweight guys, especially former champions, has been released in the past year and a half, past couple of years. That's this guy used to be a champion, and then after a few months he's gone, And it's almost like a curse, like a long-running curse. It's actually kind of incredible. Enzo Amore, he's gone because of a controversial scandal and all that, the accusations by that girl. Rich Swann, he used to be a champion. He's gone because of the domestic abuse or whatever the heck that was, and he was let go. He's a former cruiserweight champion. Neville is probably the number one example I can think of. The guy was cruiserweight champion for a year, although there's that small little break where Akira Tozawa broke his streak for maybe a few days or something like that, less than a week or something. but then he got the title back and all that. So he was champion for like pretty much a whole year in the cruiserweight division, and Neville was gone. You know what I'm saying? Neville was let go, or I think he wanted out. He wanted to, leave because whatever reason, he was tired of being in the cruiserweight division, or he wanted more and he wasn't getting it. I don't know what it was. He was tired of being in WWE, I guess. But he dominated as the cruiserweight champion. He was a pretty good heel character, and he was enjoyable. Another one was Austin Aries. I don't think he was ever the cruiserweight champ, but he was definitely a fixture. He was somebody that could have been a fixture there. He could have been, and he was good on the mic. The guy was a former TNA champion, former Ring of Honor champion. The guy was accomplished on the indies and on the smaller promotions. Austin Aries had some charisma, and he was somebody that had mic skills, and he had a bit of that star presence, almost like a smaller CM Punk, somebody that could have definitely been a pretty good cruiserweight type of guy, and he would have been, really, he would have done well there, but I don't know what happened there, where he was ultimately let go. And so the cruiserweight division has a long history of like somebody that could have been something, or somebody that had potential, became a champion in the cruiserweight division in the 205 Live, and then they're just gone. And they just don't last. And TJP is another one of those guys. I'm not saying that he had any potential, because TJP, kind of a bland guy, really no personality, not that interesting, pretty good in-ring ability, kind of athletic, some fancy moves, but the guy was the very definition of a vanilla, smaller guy type of character, like that indie, smarky kind of character where he can flip and dive and all that, like fancy moves, but the guy was, he didn't have much else besides that. He was just an in-ring, flashy, acrobat type of guy, but he didn't have amazing mic skills. He didn't have tremendous charisma. He was just really extremely bland. Even though, he was the inaugural Cruiserweight Classic champion, and I'm not saying he's not the first ever Cruiserweight champ, obviously, but in terms of that purple belts lineage, he was the first one from the Cruiserweight Classic. That was over 2 years ago, in late 2016, but he wasn't that interesting as a character, and he wasn't a big draw. It was like, oh, okay, he won. Alright, he's kind of talented in the ring, but like there's nothing there. He wasn't a character, which you can see why the WWE, especially probably somebody like Vince McMahon or whatever, on the main roster, just did not have any faith in him as being a long-running champion. Like, this guy could carry the division for like the next year and a half or whatever. He was basically the opposite of Neville. He was somebody that didn't have an interesting character. He wasn't even like that muscular, like at least Neville looked like he was kind of jacked, like small but jacked kind of guy, like really like ripped muscles and all that. Like TJP wasn't that. TJP was more skinnier looking, more slim looking, and he just didn't have an impressive physique, and so he had all these different things going against him. He didn't look impressive, and his gear was all right. Like, this outfit was kind of like this modernized looking, kind of a colorful look, but nothing really outstanding about him. So, don't know what's going to happen to him when he leaves WWE, now that he's been officially released according to ProWrestlingSheets.com. Not a very important character. I never gravitated around the TJP, character. It's like, at one point, I kind of forgot that he was in the roster. I was like, oh yeah, TJP is a part of the 205 Live. Like, yeah, that's right, he is part of WWE still. Like, technically, he is employed by them, but it's like, man, the guy did nothing after winning the Cruiserweight belt. Like, maybe every now and then he'll have a match, but it's like, whatever, like, who cares? The guy was so irrelevant, and he really didn't do anything aside from winning it the first time around, and just being the inaugural, classic champion, Cruiserweight Classic champion. But, so, good riddance. We don't really need TJP. What he does from here on, he's probably going to go back to the Indies. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to TNA, to be honest, or Impact Wrestling. That wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't surprise me. He might go to AEW. I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to see him there either. He's just a really bland character. I think he used to wrestle as Puma back in the day, in the mid-2000s. That was alright. He was like a masked character, and it's kind of interesting that he was called Puma back then. And another guy that's like a high-flying, kind of a bland guy, named Ricochet, is now wrestling in WWE. who Price is going to also end up in the 205 Live. He's kind of bland, doesn't really have much mic skills, and he used to wrestle as Prince Puma on Lucha Underground. So two guys that used to wrestle as a Puma Puma named character with a mask on back in the day. So yeah, TJP, in my opinion, is just doesn't really have that much value, and I think, especially with his age, he's not going to get any younger. At least back in the day on TNA, he was Puma. He was part of the X division. He was part of I think he was also that character with the mask. I think the character was yeah, that's what it's Suicide. That character. I don't want to pronounce it because of how stupid YouTube is with the whole you can't say certain words on YouTube, and what I'm saying. But yeah, that character with the mask, which ultimately ended up becoming Manic later on, and I think he portrayed that character too back in the early 2010s or late 2000s or whatever. And he was pretty good at that, what I'm saying? Like many other different characters portrayed it, many other wrestlers, guys like I think Christopher Daniels and maybe a bunch of other guys, but he was pretty good as when he's wearing a mask, he's not so bad, but like when he's just this bland TJP character, it's like, dude, you've got nothing, what I'm saying? Alright, and finally Tye Dillinger, who actually I think requested his release or he wanted out of it. If I'm not mistaken, Tye he's either friends with Cody, what I'm saying, Cody Rhodes in AEW, or Cody has a lot of respect for him, I think. Either him or Daniel Bryan, I forget exactly which one. I remember listening to one of those guys on Colt Cabana's podcast. But and they were praising, I think it was Tye Dillinger, they were praising his work, like, man, he's been in development for so long, and they haven't done anything with him until he started doing the 10-10-10 Perfect 10 gimmick. And so he eventually got put on the main roster, but he didn't do anything there, what I'm saying? He didn't do anything. Like, I don't remember him doing anything important. I believe he was, I don't know if he's still dating one of the Iconics. I don't know if it's Peyton Royce. I think it's Peyton Royce, but I don't, follow that kind of news enough. I think it's one of the Iconics, and he's either still dating one of them or married to him. I don't even remember, but so, maybe that might end up into, eventually, like, one of the Iconics end up becoming released or whatever, and she might end up joining him, wherever he ends up landing. Maybe it's maybe it is at AEW. I think that, out of these three different guys, between Hideo, TJP, and Tye Dillinger, I would bet that Tye is the one that ends up going to AEW just because of his desires to want to leave the company, and probably do end up wanting to go to where Cody is at. Cody's probably like, hey, if you want to come here, you're welcome. You're always welcome here. You got a spot here because, hey, you're one of our, friends or whatever. So I could imagine Tye Dillinger just wanting out of the WWE and maybe getting an actual push in AEW, getting a higher spotlight, getting that payday, getting a better pay, a better spotlight, getting better matches and having better featured on main events or whatever, and just being booked better in AEW. I mean, I'm not the biggest Tye Dillinger fan, I don't look at Tye Dillinger as like the savior of wrestling. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think he's incredible. I don't think the guy has a dynamic character where he's like must-see TV. But at the same time, I mean, if he still has some gas left in the tank and he can still perform, he can be a reliable hand for AEW. He could be a guy that could probably tag team with somebody, be a part of a tag team maybe with Cody or something like that, or somebody else on AEW, and be a part of that tag division or something like that, or the mid-card division there. And if he, really becomes a convincing main event type guy, he might end up becoming a competitor for the AEW championship, but you never know. Again, I don't really see anything special with Tye Dillinger. He never really did much in WWE. He never cut any amazing promos. The guy didn't really have an outstanding character. He doesn't have this tremendously athletic, muscular look. So it's like all these things go against him. And I'm sure that Vince McMahon is like, this guy's nothing special, so he doesn't really stand out. So I can see why he got released. I can see why they accepted his request for wanting to be, let go. they saw no value in these guys. So that includes, TJP, maybe initially as a cruiserweight guy, but it's like, who cares about him? Hideo, same thing. Doesn't have the size, doesn't have the English-speaking skills, the mic skills. And, of course, Tye Dillinger, he was just kind of a bland guy. So these three guys don't feel that important. And so I think even if all three of them end up in AEW, they're not like seen as a threat by WWE or Vince McMahon. It's like, we could spare to lose them, not a big deal. They're not like Roman Reigns or John Cena or even somebody like a Braun Strowman or somebody like that where they actually could see some value. WWE would be like, this guy it could be a top star. Or, they are top stars like a Roman Reigns or a Cena. And potentially, somebody like a Lars Sullivan, you know what I'm saying? See somebody that has potential, somebody like a Bobby Lashley. Let's see. I'm trying to read this very brief commentary here below the article, or the actual article itself. WWE announced on Friday that TJP, Tye Dillinger, and Hideo have been released. The company released blanket statements for all three, but none of them included the standard line, wishing them well in the future endeavors. Yeah, probably because of the AEW thing. Like, if they end up going there, well, we wish them well, but then they end up at the opposition, they end up in the rival promotion, and they end up as one of the enemy company. And it's like, we wish them well, but now they are doing well in AEW, and they're kicking our butts. Like, they didn't want to do that. We don't want to wish them too well because they might end up doing really well in AEW and throwing it back in their face. So anyway, the article continues. As we previously reported, Dillinger announced this week that he requested his release. Itami also requested his release weeks ago and was the focus of a 205 Live video about his last day. No word on the reason for Perkins' release. With Perkins, I would assume that it's because they just saw no value in the guy as a main event potential top star. And he really doesn't have it. He doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the charisma or anything like that. So, that's my thoughts on these particular three releases. Okay, so that's it for this episode of the Review Space. Thank you guys for watching. Check out the channel for more videos, including Becky versus Charlotte. Which one is the better female wrestler? So go check that out. Subscribe, and click on the bell button for the latest notifications. And until next time, peace.